Greetings and salutations. Welcome to Yellow Chair Chat. I'm your host, Alex Mullins with Weichert Realtors, the Space Place in the Rocket City at Huntsville, Alabama. And today I have my honored guest, Jami Blanton with Alabama Closing and Title.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Doing well.
So, Jami, you've been a closing attorney for how long?
I graduated law school in 2015, so I've been a closing attorney for just shy of 10 years. Yeah.
And you were a paralegal also with an attorney's office.
I was a paralegal for 13 years before I decided to go to law school, and did real estate transactions during that time as well.
So you've been in the business of title work forever, correct?
For a long time, and I've done every part of it from answering the phones and opening files all the way to the closing table.
That's awesome. Yeah. So a lot of people don't realize that when they're buying or selling a home that they have to use a title attorney. And actually, that's one of the biggest steps in the process of buying or selling a home.
That is correct. There are title agents out there who are not licensed attorneys, but typically they contract with licensed attorneys to prepare the legal documents. So the legal documents that go into a transaction or a closing, for example, when you're purchasing property or even a refinance, there are legal documents that are prepared, and those are usually contracted through an attorney. So, yep.
So the legal process of this starts like right in the beginning and actually goes all the way to the end of the contract, right?
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
So can you take us through how that process starts and then how it ends?
Yes, absolutely. So in the very beginning, you're negotiating a contract to buy or sell a piece of property. And that phase is usually done mostly with the real estate agents. The title attorneys, we don't usually get involved in the negotiation of the contract unless there is a specific portion of the contract that needs to be drafted with legal terminology, things like that. So we may give guidance on something like that. But once a contract is ratified or it's signed by both parties, then the agent sends that to us, and we really begin our work at that phase. So very early on in the contract phase, we get involved. So with the contract, once we get that, we open our file and we start working on it immediately. We're going to verify the information that's provided in that contract. We're going to make sure all of the parties that need to be involved are listed on that. We order our title search. The title search is the most important part of a closing. We look at the entire chain of title for the previous 30 years, and we're going to draft an opinion about that title that shows what requirements we need to meet in order to convey clear title to the buyer. So it's a very important part of the transaction.
And then also the last process is usually like the title search, and then also with the title insurance and stuff. What is the process of the title? What does the title insurance actually do for that part of it?
So there's two types of title policies, title insurance policies. There's a lender policy that insures the mortgage company, and then there's the owner's policy that insures the buyer. This policy ensures that the mortgage company is going to have a priority lien position on that property. And then the owner's policy is going to ensure that the buyer has clear title to the property, with exception to anything that may be listed on that property. For example, property may be subject to covenants, restrictions, something like that. Those are pretty typical or standard exceptions on policies.
Well, that's great. So what are any other processes in the last part of that really the buyers or sellers would really need to know in the legal part of it?
Well, there's so much that goes on or that happens on the back end of things, from the time that we do our title search to the time that we issue the policy. We're going to work with the parties to clear any liens or anything like that on the property to make sure that the buyer is getting clear title. The buyer doesn't want to buy a piece of property that has an outstanding mortgage on it from the seller. So we work with both parties to pay off that mortgage and make sure that lien is cleared. We're going to look at the legal description. We're going to make sure the buyer has access, to a public road, things like that. There's so much that goes on the behind the scenes, I guess is the best way to put that. And we also prepare the settlement statement. So we look at the contract, we look at who's paying what closing costs, and we put everything on a settlement statement that shows all the money that we bring in for the transaction, whether it's from the lender or the buyer. And then we itemize everything that we disperse out of those funds. So taxes, recording costs, closing costs, real estate commission fees, title charges, lien payoffs, anything like that, all of that stuff's going to go on the settlement statement, all the way down to the termite report, repairs if those are necessary, things like that.
Yeah, so all those things will get paid and issued out through the title cert and the title company, correct?
Through the title company, that is correct. Everything that's involved in the contract and the closing of that property goes through the closing company. We collect that money and then we disperse it out.
That's awesome. So is there anything else that they would really be out of the best steps of finalizing the contract through the title search?
Well, there's, making sure that the title company knows all of the terms of the contract and everything that's involved. Sometimes I see where a listing agent may put something on the MLS listing and then it doesn't get included in the title or the contract. We don't actually get a copy of the MLS listing. So making sure those key details that are included in that are actually part of the transaction are converted over into the contract, so that we can make sure that we're closing it pursuant to the agreement and the expectations of the parties.
Well, thank you for clearing that all up with us today. And thank you so much for coming with us.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you again for joining us with Yellow Chair Chat. And join us again next week for our next episode. Have a great week.
Thank you.